Okay. If there's any, I think we just. Are there any other issues that anybody wants to raise under the first sort of briefing note that we've been looking at under the issue of design? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you. I'm sorry I've not been here for the whole of this session, and so this may have come up earlier, but in the bit that I heard about sustainability, I was a bit concerned that it seemed to be skated over rather quickly. Oh, sorry, I'm a Minority Party member of one of the planning subcommittees, and I would like to see whether or not there is real resistance to the idea of really integrating sustainable policies into the new arrangements. One of the things I've been doing today is going to a London Remade conference, which had a presentation from Marks and Spencer's, which was most interesting in the way that they are trying to integrate the whole sustainability thing throughout their business. So I'm just concerned that this rather seemed to be just nodded along without really a sense of it being an urgent matter. And this leads on to the question 9, the lobbying process, and I think that the issue of the discrepancies on VAT between demolition and rebuild refurbishment it might be something that people will want to consider. So I just want to toss this back and see if there actually are a few other remarks that people might care to make.
Yes, the gentleman here.
Sorry, Paul Williams again of Derwent, London. We regenerate a lot of our buildings, and they do cost quite a lot of money to do that, but we're very interested in trying to make sure that old buildings work well in the future and are sustainable. And we obviously look at BREEAM ratings, etc. And we encourage opening windows, which might be an old-fashioned idea, but with noise pollution, maybe we have to be a bit more tolerant. But of course, when we're looking at regenerating old buildings, there is a restriction on additional office space we can create, even by just reorganising the building. And that's quite a fetter on actually regenerating the old stock, which is in itself sustainable, especially when you add other requirements such as residential and affordable housing and all the rest of it. And maybe that should be encouraged more. I mean, a lot of the stock is old and can be reused, but we need to be encouraged as well as taxed.
Okay, thank you.
It's Gabby again. It's a point, really, a general point. I'm on the St Marylebone Society Planning Committee. I'm also an architect. One of the things when we look at plans on our committee, and it may be a 40-storey skyscraper by Richard Rogers, if it was perceived that Richard Rogers, for instance, would take the design and do the detail and see it through to completion on site, people would feel, in my experience on my committee, a little happier than in a lot of cases when they get the permission, then it's sold on to another developer who changes it or builds it cheaper or doesn't see to the detailing in the same overall way that the original architect might have had their concept, and that kind of can affect the design really badly. And the other point really coming from, there are so many rules and regulations now that sometimes the level of detail and the amount of reports that you have to put in for something which hasn't actually been agreed in principle puts a lot of pressure on the architects to rush things and skim things and do the bare minimum just to get all those boxes ticked so you can even get a decision back from the planning department to get it validated or just to get the discussion going, because sometimes you're going into far too much detail too soon with a design. And I think that affects design quality in the long run because of the amount that's done up front in a hurry.
Thank you.
Neil Thompson, Great Portland Estates. I'd just like to make a comment about good design in Westminster, because I think that the vast majority of the developers who do work in Westminster actually commend Westminster for seeking to achieve good design. But I think good design is not something that's easy to achieve, and I think all of us need to remember that the process of good design is actually a collaborative process, and therefore we need to work together on it. It's also an iterative process on the basis that nobody comes up with a fantastic idea first time round. And I think if Westminster want to have good design, then they should be prepared to put their time, effort, energy, and to a certain extent money into making sure that good design can actually be delivered. And I think that if they did that, then they would actually get support from the development community across the board.
Sorry, I was taken by... I hadn't seen this booklet before, perhaps I should have done. but I was quite taken by it, and I wondered whether we talked about design review panel, whether having a sort of backwards design review panel, where we have a debate between the local authority and other stakeholders about what's good about these buildings. So we start to develop some common understandings so that when we as developers, sorry, Adrian Penfold from British Land, when we as developers bring forward proposals, we've had that debate about at a more generic level, rather than the inevitable immediate sort of crash into the site-specific, the proposal, the architect that tends to happen in our day-to-day business.
Thank you.
Just following on that, and Terence Manson speaking on behalf of the Building Centre, it has now become very much a forum for young architects and senior architects to present what they have done, what should be done, and how it all fits together in the sustainable context and the environmental context too. And it would seem to me that this is a long-term process for getting not only councillors to understand what good design is when they are approached to make decisions, but it ought to be, as has just been said, a retrospective opportunity that when work has been done, that this is presented to a wide audience. And I would commend the Building Centre as one place where it has now become very much a forum for that sort of thing in other boroughs, and Westminster City could take it up. And I believe they have been doing this through New London Architecture and through the Building Centre Trust itself. But it is a good idea that people have a better idea after the job has been done about what was good and what might be improved.